June 23rd, 1757. This is not just a date. This is the moment India's fate was sealed. The moment a civilization that had thrived for thousands of years was pushed onto a completely different path. Not by a great war, not by overwhelming force, but by a conspiracy, by greed, by betrayal. This is the story of the Battle of Plassey. Let's go back a little. Let's talk about the India that existed before Plassey. In the mid-18th century, Bengal was the most prosperous province in all of India. Its capital, Murshidabad, was said to rival London in wealth. Bengal's textiles, silk, and spices were sold across European markets. Its merchants were wealthy, its farmers were self-sufficient, and its Nawab's treasury overflowed. The Nawab of Bengal was Siraj-ud-Daula, around 23 years old, sharp, and deeply devoted to his province. But within his own court, there were men who wanted his throne, men who were jealous, men who were ambitious. And it was this internal weakness that his enemies would ruthlessly exploit. On the other side stood the East India Company, founded in 1600 as a trading enterprise, now transformed into a political and military power with its own armies, its own forts, and its own agenda. It no longer just wanted to trade with India, it wanted to rule it. Now here is something that most people overlook, and that exam questions frequently ask about. Before Plassey, Robert Clive had already established his reputation. In 1751, at the Battle of Arcot, Clive defeated the French and their Indian allies in the Carnatic region. This victory made him the company's most trusted military officer, and the reason he was specifically chosen to handle the Bengal crisis. In 1756, Siraj attacked and captured the company's fort in Calcutta, Fort William. What followed is recorded in history as the Black Hole of Calcutta. The British were furious. Clive was sent to retaliate. But before the battle, Clive made one more calculated move, one that is critically important and very frequently asked in competitive exams. In February 1757, Clive had Siraj sign the Treaty of Alinagar. Under this treaty, the company's old trading privileges were fully restored and Calcutta was returned. But this treaty was nothing more than a tactical delay. Clive was already deep in conspiracy with Mir Jafar behind Siraj's back. Now let's talk about the traitors. The first and most significant, Mir Jafar, Siraj's commander-in-chief, his most trusted general. Mir Jafar struck a secret deal with Clive. Help us win, and you become the next Nawab of Bengal. On the day of battle, he held back his 35,000 soldiers and watched Siraj's army collapse. The second, Jagat Seth, Bengal's most powerful banker, who financially backed the entire conspiracy. The third, Rai Durlab, Siraj's chief minister, who worked from inside to weaken the Nawab's administration. The fourth, Omichand, the merchant middleman who tried to demand a large personal cut. Clive's response was to create two versions of the agreement, a real one and a fake one. He showed Omichand the fake version, which promised him a fortune. After the victory, Omichand was shown the real document. His name wasn't in it at all. The shock reportedly broke his mind entirely. He spent the rest of his life in mental ruin. And one name that is often forgotten, the French. French artillery officers were fighting on Siraj's side at Plassey. This was the era when the British and French were competing for dominance across all of India. In the south, the French officer Bussy had established a strong presence in Hyderabad. The victory at Plassey permanently ended French influence in Bengal and significantly weakened their position across India. Plassey was not just a British victory over a local Nawab. It was part of a much larger global contest between Britain and France for colonial supremacy. On the morning of June 23rd, the plains of Plassey, along the banks of the Bhagirathi River, surrounded by mango groves. Siraj's side, 50,000 soldiers, 53 cannons, war elephants, cavalry, French artillery. Clive's side, just 3,000 men. The battle began. Rain fell. Siraj's gunpowder got wet. The British had kept theirs covered and dry. Mir Jafar held his troops back. Siraj's army crumbled. The Nawab fled. He was caught days later and executed without trial on the orders of Mir Jafar's own son. Clive looted the treasury. Crores of rupees in gold, silver, and jewels, all shipped to England. Clive personally pocketed around £250,000 in bribes. Mir Jafar was made Nawab, but he was a puppet. When he later showed even a hint of independence, the British removed him and replaced him with Mir Qasim. Now comes the next chapter, which for exam purposes is just as important as Plassey itself. After Plassey came Buckseye. Mir Qasim turned out to have some self-respect. He resisted company interference. The result? The Battle of Buxar in 1764. Mir Qasim, the Nawab of Awadh Siraj-ud-Daula, and the Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II, all three joined forces against the British. They lost. The Battle of Buxar was in many ways more decisive than Plassey itself, because after Buxar, the company's dominance extended far beyond Bengal into the whole of northern India. In 1765 came the Diwani rights, full revenue authority over Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa, handed directly to the company. But Clive added one more layer of cunning. He introduced the dual government system. Under this arrangement, the company collected all revenue, the Diwani function, while law and order remained the Nawab's responsibility, the Nizamat function. In other words, the company took all the money and gave the Nawab all the problems. This system lasted until 1772, when Warren Hastings abolished it. The result of this systematic extraction, the Great Bengal Famine of 1770. Nearly 10 million people died, 1/3 of Bengal's entire population gone. The scandal reached the British Parliament. Investigations were launched into the company's corruption and misgovernance. And in 1773, the British Parliament passed the Regulating Act, the first time the British government formally asserted control over the company's activities in India. Warren Hastings became Bengal's first Governor-General, and Robert Clive, the man who started it all, returned to England. He faced parliamentary inquiry over charges of corruption and personal enrichment. The investigations were brutal, and in 1774, Clive took his own life. The man who looted India met a tragic end of his own. After Plassey, the dominoes fell. Mysore, the Marathas, Punjab. The Great Revolt of 1857 came, but by then the British grip was too tight. This continued until 1947, 190 years of colonial rule, traced back to one morning of betrayal. Plassey teaches us something that goes beyond history books. No nation is destroyed by an outside enemy. It is destroyed from within, by the treachery of its own people. Siraj had everything, but his own people sold him out. Remember history, so it is never repeated. If this video added value, like it, share it, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, can Mir Jafar ever be forgiven?